Hi guys, welcome to Hopper's Motorsport Vlogs. Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening. Welcome to part one of why is cars such a big thing in my life. I've wanted to do this vlog for some time and potentially, give you guys a bit of a background about various things, why cars was a huge thing in my life. We'll get into the vlog very shortly, but just as a disclaimer, there will be probably some colourful language throughout. Maybe the second part of this vlog, because there's going to be two parts. Yeah, that's right, two parts. But part one is today, and then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks today, there will be the second and probably final part of the vlog. So I'm looking forward to seeing how part one pans out, and yeah, just share some stories along the way. Just before we get into the vlog, if you don't know who I am Hoppers, or Andy. You can call me either, on whether it's the live videos or the vlogs. Based in the northwest of England, and we are give us 1 sec while I try and adjust the brightness a bit of the. Oh, that's too bright. But yeah, we're based in the northwest of England. Obviously, the accent may not seem a northwest accent for some bizarre reason, but yeah. So based in the northwest, British touring car fan for 25 years. At the end of next month, so at the end of May. As you can tell, proudly wearing my Dan Roadbottom 32 hoodie, the Roadbottom 32 hoodie. A huge follower of Dan for many years in Dan's illustrious racing career. But yeah, we'll get into the vlog, shall we? And maybe some laughs, maybe some moments, But we'll see how it goes. So yeah, my journey into liking cars started when I was probably maybe 2 or 3 years old. Back in the day, obviously I'm 35 this year. Don't look it. But started when I was roughly maybe 2 or 3 years old. With my late grandparents. My late grandparents sadly passed away in 2016. 8 years ago, funny enough. It was 8 years ago. I lost my grandparents, and I remember I think I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. I remember being with them and my mum and dad, when my mum and dad were together. And I remember probably walking around the car park, probably numerous times, trying to name every single car in the car park. And I remember probably, seeing probably the same make of car probably more than once in the car park. So, that probably gave me the stead to name and correctly name the car, throughout that age. And I remember at the time trying to, remember cars back in the day, like, sort of early 90s, like a Vauxhall Cavalier, a Renault Clio, maybe a Renault 5, and cars like, Ford Escorts, Ford Sierras, or even, cars like a Peugeot 309 or something. And I realised, like, going around the car park probably helped me. And obviously, trying to love cars in general, And I think because of naming the cars in the car park, excuse me, I always kind of gathered that eventually one day growing up I'd become a petrol head, a car fanatic, a motorsport freak, whatever you want to know it as, And obviously as time went on, I felt really comfortable naming the cars in the car park for my nan and granddad, And I think at the time, my grandparents had an MG Metro, not the turbo version or the 6R4 rally car. Imagine that. But no, I think they had at the time an MG Metro, and I think also at this time, my dad had, and I'm going to say this, and yeah, this, I did say there'll be a bit of swearing in part two, but there probably will be a bit of swearing in part one as well. But to me, he had a shitty brown coloured three-door Ford Escort, which he probably wouldn't approve of me saying. But, I think at the time when I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, he had that brown Escort, and I don't know whether it was a brown or it was sort of an off brown, peachy brown or whatever. I don't know. I couldn't remember top of my head, but I remember obviously my dad having that, and obviously I think my grandparents had a MG Metro, because obviously, later on in life, when I was obviously growing up, I think when I was maybe like 5 or 7 years old, or maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years old, my granddad had a Peugeot 309 in a grey colour, fabulous car, Okay, it's French, it's a Peugeot, like it or love it, like it or lump it, or love it or hate it, It's like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it. But obviously, naming all the cars around in the car park with like grandparents and obviously mum and dad, then obviously brought me into a massive interest of cars. And to be honest, cars has always been part of my life, regardless of who I am as a person. Like I say, I'm 34, coming to 35 this year. If I hadn't been introduced to cars, then what would it have been? Would it have been bicycles? Would it have been motorbikes? Would it have been trains? Would it have been trucks? So really, if cars, growing up as a child, cars were massive, and it stems from having toy cars when I was a little kid, and I kind of, in a way, because I had so many cars, there's a video of me somewhere when I was probably about 3, maybe 2 years old, maybe 3 years old, that I think I was in my bedroom at the family home at the time, and I think I had the Shell petrol station tanker in my hand at the time. And this is where I'm probably going to embarrass myself. I'm probably going to be like a bit emotional. I used to probably say goodbye to my cars, and when I was putting them away at night time, or I was playing with my cars at the time, I used to say hello to the tankers and the cars and saying goodbye to them and stuff like that. But it's like, how did I manage to technically out when I was a kid, I had the old Sierra RS500 Texaco livery car. I couldn't believe I had that. And other behold, excuse me, there's quite a lot of things with liking cars and stuff. And I remember saying to myself, probably in my head at a young age, is why all of a sudden am I playing with toy cars, And this is where probably, you probably think, hang on a minute, you had a Sierra RS500 Texaco livery as a car as a child, and I think most of the time the car collection got bigger and better as the years went by. And I remember probably that era of obviously, having toy cars, the Sierra RS500. And I think I had, at the time, obviously the Shell tanker. I had probably Matchbox cars. I can't even remember exactly what make and model cars I had. But I think I had a few Jaguar XJ 220s as toy cars. I know I had an Opel Calibra mock-up. I had an Alpha 155 mock-up DTM liveries. And I used to go to the toy shop probably and spend my money on toy cars, and it's probably the right thing to do at that age. And other behold, using the excuse me, excuse me, using the family home, the hallway in the landing, um, at home upstairs, using the landing as a racetrack. Yeah, not a good idea when you're maybe like 2 or 3 years old, or even 4 years old, And I remember using it as my virtual racetrack, probably using my bedroom as a racetrack as well at the time. And, I think, how on earth, would I get away with using the hallway as a racetrack when you know for a fact, well, you probably didn't know it as a fact, that half the banister was missing. You had a banister at home, potentially stopping me and my brother when we were younger somehow falling down the stairs as such. But then you would think half a banister's missing, so why am I using the landing as my racetrack when anything can happen? So anyway, I was using my toy cars and playing about and pushing them along as you do. And I remember one day, and this is what I still don't understand how I managed to do it and how I managed to literally, become who I am, essentially. I remember one day I don't know whether I was playing with the cars at the time, but I remember somehow, and it's amazing how I remember this and not, and thinking to myself, I could have been seriously hurt or worse, because at the old house, the bottom of the stairs had a glass panel next to the front door, and this is how I remember it. And I can't remember how I managed to do, and somehow I managed to do a front roll from the banister to the bottom step of the stairs. And you're probably thinking, what? Yeah, exactly. So I don't know why I managed to do a forward roll down to the bottom step, and somehow ended up not smashing the window and going through that and potentially cutting myself to shreds. And I remember thinking to myself, how on earth have I got there? And I think at the time, my mum was like, how on earth have you gone from there to there? I don't think she realised until I probably started crying. I don't know if I hurt myself doing that at the same time. I don't know. I really don't know. And then obviously my dad comes back from being at work or something and sees me at the bottom. And I think they take me to go and see if I'm hurt. And I'm like, how have I managed to do that? And I think it probably stems to why sometimes I feel like, I'm going to say this, sometimes I feel like I'm dumb. But it's like, how on earth did I manage to do a front roll from the banister that was missing on the landing and landed up and ended up at the bottom step? Imagine if I did that with more force and then gone through the glass window. It wouldn't even been thinking about it, would it? It probably would have cut me to 1,000 pieces, and it would be like, oh shit, But anyway, so obviously, note to self: if you've got a bit of a banister missing and your kids are playing with toy cars, don't let them. It's not the right thing to do. But anyway, So yeah, I remember obviously doing that, but then obviously as time went on, my dad used to windsurf. I used to be a windsurfer, and he had the pipe. I think it held the sail or something. I can't remember what it is on a windsurf. If any windsurfers are out there that have subscribed to Hoppers Motorsport Vlogs or you haven't, please do let me know what that pipe is for. And I remember somehow, getting the toy cars, pushing them through, letting them go through because there was one end of the pipe that had a hole, and I thought there was another hole at the other end where the cars would come out. Ultimately, no, there wasn't, And I didn't know this at the time. I thought if I put the car through the tube or the pipe, whatever it is, thought, oh, there'll be another hole where the cars will come out at the bottom of the stairs. And I think that's where, obviously, when I did the forward roll from the banister, I think that's because, I thought I'd race the car. If I put the car in there, then quickly run to the where the banister was missing, and then race it instead of going down the stairs like you would as a child and slip over and hurt your back or bang your head. I thought, I think that's probably why I tried to race it, and then I realised the car was stuck. So maybe because I tried to race the car, that's the quickest way to do it. But obviously not. The cars didn't come out at the end. I remember, probably a certain age, thinking I've lost a really good toy car and trying to figure out why it's not in the toy box or why it's not in the car box. And I think, one day I actually just cried because it was a car that I really liked. I can't remember what car it was. Don't ask me. But I couldn't remember what car it was. So I think I remember crying about it, and then I said to my dad, I tried to say to my dad it was in the tube of the windsurfer thing, and I think he was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to tip it up. I'm going to have to try and get him out and tip him up. But at the time, it was like they were stuck. I think later on in life, when he sold the windsurf, he then obviously retrieved the cars back in the day that were stuck and that weren't in there. And I think it was like a hot rod that had scratched a bit. It had a red bonnet. I think if you pulled it back, the bonnet had come up. So yeah, I think somehow I think it was that I really liked playing with at the time. And then obviously, as years went on, I started getting, cars for Christmas, birthday, etc. And I was thinking to myself, at the time, obviously, Toca touring cars, the Toca touring car games had probably just come out as well. So I was probably about 6 or 7 years old when Toca Touring Car Championship came out, the first ever one. When it came out on PlayStation, and I remember saying to myself, and this is another thing why I now take the online racing that I do, which you'll find out in part 2. Why I take the online racing for granted, why I'm glad to be part of an online racing community. So, when Toca Touring Car Championship came out for PlayStation, I never knew anything about the btcc that I love and adore to this day forward, And I remember at the time saying to myself, it's a racing game, don't know much about it. I thought the btcc, as you know, what I've said previously, was a made-up championship. And God forbid, I remember saying to myself, I can't race. I'm not as good as my dad. My dad used to be really good at the games, He probably still would be to this day forward if we had to give him an updated version. But I remember sitting there racing, crashing into the cars, thinking, why am I crashing into the cars? It's just a made up championship until you realise later on in life it is real, And I remember finding it really hard to, even qualify pole position or qualify third, fourth, whatever. I used to qualify last. I never really used to take it seriously. And I think at the time I used to think this game is just arcade. It's not based on anything real. And I think I sometimes used to not really do very well. And I think at the time of, trying to get a lot of things out there, like trying to understand, it is based on the 1997 British Touring Car season. Obviously, I didn't know until I read the back of it one day later on in my life, and I thought, oh yeah. So because of getting involved in the touring car games at the time, maybe at 98, okay, maybe I was now maybe 7 or 8 years old. And I think, reading about it and then thinking, hang on a minute, BTCC later on in life. But obviously, playing the games then probably made my dad think it's based on a real championship. I don't think he really told me it was based on a real championship. And I think he was thinking, I'm going to look into this because it's British touring cars. Andy's into cars. Let's see if we can go to a real race. Other behold, you find out back in the day when I was obviously getting into motorsport that I got told by my mum, obviously when my mum and dad were together, don't take him to a rally event because we've heard that spectators have been killed. Obviously, if you're watching this, mum, why? but yeah, but obviously I've been to rally events now, and I know the risks. But then they do say when you go to btcc or you go into any motorsport can be dangerous. So you live the risks. So I think my dad realised Alton Park was, probably one of the closest tracks to us at the time. It still is, still is, even though I'm an hour and a half away on a bus to where my dad lives. But I obviously, getting into the BTCC is obviously, I think playing the games is what spurred my dad to look into the real life BTCC. I'm not 100% on this, don't quote me. And I remember somehow with playing the touring car games, not knowing much about the touring car championship, and then I got told maybe one year, maybe Bank Holiday 1999, I remember finding out I'm off to Alton Park to go and watch rounds 9 and 10 of the 1999 Auto Trader BTCC British Touring Car Championship at Alton Park. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know much about this. I don't know who to support. I may have seen it on telly, but I don't know much about it in real life. I've never stepped foot into a circuit until then. And I remember thinking, I'm probably about 9 years old at the time, because I was turning 10 that year. Yeah, probably was like 9 years old, turning 10. And I remember saying to myself, and I don't know how or what had happened, but I remember the day like it was yesterday, not like 25 years ago. And I remember saying to myself, going in, obviously parking up in a field somewhere near the circuit. And I remember somehow walking from that field to Lodge Corner, which is the last corner at Alton Park. And I somehow, because obviously with my age at the time, I got in for nothing. Because obviously, if you're within a company and adult, if you're under a certain age of British touring car events, you get in for free. Unless you're 13 and over, then you have to pay an adult ticket. So I got in for free. And I remember thinking to myself, stepping into Alton Park for the first time, a bit of an unknown territory. And I remember saying to myself that, I'm yet to see a British touring car in real life. Other behold, on the Monday, which was Bank Holiday Monday, the 31st of May 1999, I think at the time, when I got into Lodge Corner, I sat there And then the next couple of minutes went by, and then I think we got told on the PA system by, I think it was Ian Titchmarsh that was doing the commentary at the time. Alan Hyde, if you're watching this, you may be able to help me with that, because I believe you were commentating that year in the pit lane. If you could help me, it'd be a massive help. But I think it was Ian Titchmarsh that was doing the commentary at the time. I think he announced the British touring cars were coming out for their morning warm-up, which, other behold, okay, they had qualifying on the Sunday, but race day, I think, because it was bank holiday, they had a warm-up session, and that's when I first had a glimpse at the BTCC in real life. I remember, I think the car I first saw, which made me burst into tears, was, I think it was James Thompson's 99 Honda Accord. And I think because, obviously, watching it on telly, when you watch it on telly, it's not as loud as it is trackside. And I remember, I think it was either James's Honda or it was Rickard Rydell's 5-cylinder Volvo S40. I can't remember which car it was for the life of me, which made me burst into tears. Which, I think because the engines are loud, you know, the cars are stripped to bare metal with a roll cage, racing seat, 5-point harnesses, you know, there's no... excuse me. There's no passenger seat, there's no radio, there's no comfort of a leather seat or a cushioned seat. You know, it's completely stripped to bare metal inside, so it's obviously very noisy. And I remember seeing either one of the two cars, and I remember crying to my dad, saying I wanted to go home, I don't like the noise. And it was kind of like, you know, a new experience for me. And I kind of somehow managed to persevere with, you know, being there for the rest of the day. Because I think at the time it was like, my dad was like, oh, come on, you know, stay for the day, it'll be fine, you know, you'll be fine, you know, don't worry about it, just cover your ears like this and put your fingers in your, and sometimes like I got my fleece at the time doing this. And I think, you know, I think obviously, you know, I realised I was there because you know, to get used to the races, you know. And I think as the day went on, I kind of felt, okay, I didn't like the noise, but I persevered and I watched the races. So, you know, I think, obviously, looking back at it, I wish I kind of got introduced to BTCC a year earlier, maybe in 98. And then I could have seen the Peugeot Green and Gold 406, you know, the SO Ultron machine. And I think, you know, obviously persevering with it, you know, we watched the Formula Renaults, Formula Ford, I think, the two BTCC races, because they used to have two races back then. They had a sprint race and then a longer feature race where they had to make a pit stop, which, for those who probably remember the Super Touring era, from 98 up until 2000, well, pit stops ended in 2003, but the Super Touring era, they had the fluorescent Dayglow yellow tear-off strip, which was a Velcro strip, so if they had it removed, it was blank, so it was the black bit of the Velcro strip, but if they didn't make the pit stop, it was obviously the yellow strip on either side underneath the driver's name on the back doors of the car, so you could identify who made the pit stop and who didn't. And I remember obviously persevering. Yes, I didn't like the noise, but I remember a bit of a funny moment from that year, my first ever event, where I remember we didn't do the pit lane walkabout, so we didn't know nothing about getting drivers' signatures and meeting the drivers then. But I remember looking around the paddock, looking at the cars, you know, and obviously I think at the time we were supporting Ford. Yes, we were supporting Ford, and yes, obviously Mr. Robo drives a Focus ST in BTCC. So I'm supporting Blue Oval again. Can you believe that? 25 years on. But I remember seeing Anthony Reid and Alan Manew's Ford Mondeo touring car, and I think at the time, obviously, we're following Anthony Reid, if I remember rightly, and it was behind a tape, well, not a tape, but sort of a barrier that was kind of like, like in queue lines, you have like the barriers that you clip on and clip off to let people through. Well, I remember standing behind that, and this is probably where health and safety these days probably wouldn't allow it unless you had a VIP pass, unless you were part of the team or the driver. You wouldn't be allowed in that section. But I remember at the time standing behind that sort of barrier, and my dad took a picture of me. Somehow we've lost the picture. Don't know how we've lost that. But I remember somehow at the time standing behind there, and then one of the mechanics says, "Does he want to go and have a picture with Anthony Reid's car?" Because obviously, yes, they were working on it, getting it ready while they were doing pit lane walkabout before the first race of the day, I think. And my dad was, before my dad even had said yes, it's fine, yeah, okay, I buggered health and safety. I probably would have got sued if I did it in my adulthood. If Jen and I ever have kids, yeah, Jen's my partner. I've gone about Jen in part 2, But if I ever have children, I'm never going to let them do what I did without my permission, obviously. But I somehow managed to, before my dad said yes, it's fine, we'll go through. I ducked under the barrier thing, gone and stood it, and my dad was like, "Where's he gone?" And I was there, and he was like, "How did you get there? I didn't say it was all right at first." And then I think my dad said, "Yeah, it's fine, yeah." Afterwards, I was like, before, I thought at first my dad had obviously said yes, but I obviously at the time he didn't answer. So at first I thought his answer was yes, go on. But then so I went under. But then obviously he then realised what I'd done, and the mechanic had said, "Yeah, it's fine," So I got in before even permission had been granted. So yeah, let that be a lesson. Don't if anyone before anyone says yes, you can go and have a picture with a car. Wait for the granted permission. Don't do a me at 9 years old. yeah, 9 years old. Yeah, don't do a me at 9 years old. So obviously we did that, and like I say, we watched the racing, and then obviously as the years went by, BTCC has become a huge part of my life, and cars have been tremendous. You'll find out more in part 2, where we talk about, potentially, various things such as, going to college to do level 1 motor vehicle at my local college at the time. Learning to drive, part 1 of learning to drive, and then obviously giving up learning to drive to go and, potentially go to college to study motorsport, first diploma in motorsport, and then obviously qualifying that, then obviously, getting into, the world of work, and then ultimately, obviously you're finding about a bit more how Jen's got involved into BTCC and how she's got involved into the vlogs. So yeah, the vlogs will get a mention. And then going back to learning to drive, then ultimately passing my driving test. If you've not seen the how many attempts it took me to do my driving test, go and check that vlog out. It is on our YouTube channel. And ultimately, to this day forward, what cars still mean to me, especially with the BTCC. Obviously changing rules like hybrid and stuff like that. You'll find out a bit more how I feel about that in the second part of this vlog. But yeah, I hope you've really enjoyed this bit of why cars a huge part of my life, part one. But obviously, if you've liked this video, please do smash the thumbs up. If you haven't, then obviously a thumbs down. Please like and comment and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our social medias, our Facebook, Twitter, or X, that's formerly known as Twitter, Threads. Check our socials out, because, you know, there's a lot of things on there that you may not have seen, or you don't see on the YouTube side. But yeah, if you've liked this video, guys, thank you so much for liking. And if you have enjoyed it and you're ready for part 2, I will then obviously video part 2 in the next couple of weeks, or I may even do it today. I'll see how things go. But hope you've enjoyed this one. Part 2 should be amazing. Part 2 should be maybe a bit more adult, should we say? A bit more going into adulthood and stuff like that, and potentially, you know, talking about certain things that I've done in my life, you know. So I'll see you guys around. If you enjoyed this content, then please do check the other content out. You know, just some amazing content on there. I think there's the passenger ride in the Palmer Jaguar, which I'll be talking about in part 2. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care. Ta-ra.